Welcome. This is Into the Writer's Cave, the show where we chat with fun and fabulous authors about their story worlds. I'm Patricia Sargent, your host, and on this episode of Into the Writer's Cave, we're chatting with fun and fabulous USA Today best-selling author Priscilla Oliveras. Priscilla, thank you so much for letting us into your story world today.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to chat with you for a while.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure is mine, really. Did I mess up the pronunciation of your name?
No, you did really well. You said Oliveras.
Okay,
you did really well. Nice,
well,
thanks.
There's so many questions that I really want to ask you, but let's take it kind of slowly and start with, you're a USA Today best-selling author of contemporary romance. What drew you to the romance genre?
Gosh, I think it's, first of all, like the happy ending. That whole idea that good people can win. A lot of us in the industry, or like in the romance industry, like to think of romance as the literature of hope, and it's a feel-good message. But when at the end of the book, I mean, bad stuff happens because bad stuff happens to all of us. But at the end, it's a couple or people who have gone through some kind of experience, some kind of negativity or conflict, but they have persevered and they've prevailed. And so if it's rose-colored glasses, fine. But for me, it's the 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 love of a happy ending and the idea that good people can have good things happen to them.
I think that is the best description of the romance genre I've ever heard. Thank
Ah,
you for that. Now, at the time of this interview, the time that we're chatting, I know that
mhm.
our viewer readers are going to be really excited to know that you've published a standalone, two anthologies, and a trilogy by the end of 2019. Because I know when I looked at your webpage, I was super giddy about that.
Ah.
Can
It's been a really busy time, like from debut to now, but it's been filled with lots of blessings.
Oh, truly. And your books have been so well received, like candy. Can we start with your trilogy, to Perfection? Can you tell us how you developed those story ideas and those characters?
Sure. The Match to Perfection series features the three Fernandez sisters, Yasmin, Rosa, and Lily. They each have their own book. But the first book is Yasmin's. She's the older sister. So, Yasmin is the one that came to me first. And just as I think my girls and I have always been theater lovers, and, being a mom of three girls that were involved in dance and that kind of arena. And so maybe it was more natural that a woman who is a professional dancer, in New York is who appeared to me. But just as I started talking with Yasmin and learning more about her and finding out about her sisters and her dad, Papi, I knew that these were people that I started to care about, and I hoped that I could do a good enough job telling their stories that then readers would come to care about them as well. Tomas and Yasmin challenge each other, and along the way, you get to meet everyone else in the Fernandez familia, especially book one, Papi. Their dad plays a big role in that book, and his spirit is in all the others. But I really connected with their familia, their family, and hoped that I could bring their stories to life in a good enough way to do them justice.
Super. Now, you mentioned talking with Yasmin.
Hmm.
So do the character names come to you first? I mean, who are you talking to when you're
That's a good question. I think really it's it's really more a person that comes to me. And so, like, the names, I'm trying to think, really, like with the new series that I just started, the names, it's kind of like as the person is forming and I'm getting a feel for their personality, there's just like there's a name that feels right, whether it's strong or soft or just something about it that I'm like with Rosa, the second sister. That's to me, that's a softer, beautiful. name, but like if you think of the rose, it still has its thorns. It still can kind of defend itself, and so to me that speaks to Rosa's personality, who she is, and so that name is was appropriate for her. For Yasmin, that's a good question. I'd have to think about how. I think that name is a little bit different to me. It's stronger, but a little bit sexier, a little bit, and that's how I think of Yasmin. She goes by Yaz, so it's kind of a mix.
Can you tell us a bit about Rosa's story?
Oh, sure, yes. Rosa is the second sister. Her story is Her Perfect Affair. Rosa is a librarian at a local Catholic school, the school that the girls all attended when they were in elementary all through high school. And Rosa is the responsible sister. Not that the other ones are irresponsible. they would not appreciate me saying that. But if you want something to get done and you want it to get done correctly, that she's that OCD personality. Her calendar is on the fridge and it's color coded. And when the girls were younger, their chores were color coded and there was no messing up. So that's Rosa. But you find out through the course of the story something that is, she has stepped into their mother's role, because their mother passed away when the girls were younger. Yaz and Rosa were in high school, and Rosa stepped into mommy's role after she had died. And you find out over the course of the book why that was so important to Rosa to do. But at her core, she is, like I said, that she's the pleaser, the one who's going to follow the rules. And the gist of Rosa's story and Her Perfect Affair is she's had a long-time crush on Jeremy, who is a family friend, first a friend of Yasmin's from New York, who also happens to live now in Chicago, where the stories are all set. And so Rosa's had a secret crush on Jeremy, and she decides to kind of make her move, let her, kind of give him a bigger sign. At Yasmin and Tomas's wedding. And that bigger sign turns into a one-night affair, and Rosa winds up pregnant. And Jeremy is another do the right thing. And let me tell you, it's very hard to write a book with two really nice people, because I had a hard time throwing conflict at them and being mean to them. And that's what we have to do as a writer, or else you have a really short book. But Jeremy wants to do the right thing and marry her. And for the first time, Rosa doesn't do what everybody expects, what her school expect, at Catholic school. And she says no. She's adamant that she doesn't want to settle. She doesn't want Jeremy to settle. And so the book is about two good people who are in a difficult situation, like a lot of us, have to, tend to be, and not necessarily that you're, a surprise pregnancy, but difficulties in our lives, trying to figure out how to do the right thing for themselves and their loved ones, and finding out what that is and what that means in your life. And so that's kind of the genesis, the gist of their book.
Oh, and it's interesting to me. It sounds as though part of their conflict is their niceness.
It kind of is, yes, because they want to do the right things. You just have to make sure you're doing the right things for the right reason. And sometimes is the right thing the right thing to do?
I love that. That's a great reader question.
So that's something that they have to figure out. Rosa has always been in the shadows of her two sisters, big personalities, and she's been fine with that. But the second or the third Fernandez sister that maybe people think about, she doesn't want to be the in the shadow or the after, not the afterthought. She wants to make sure that Jeremy is with her because he wants to be with her, not because he feels that's the right thing to do, which then gets in, can get in their way, because when he says, I love you, does he really mean I love you? Or is he saying I love you because that's the right thing to do? So it's that friends to lovers trope that a lot of romance readers tend to like. And what I like about that trope is that part of the conflict is, if you have a good thing going right now as friends, if you cross that line, you might not be able to come back. And if you cross that line and it doesn't work out, then what do you have? So that creates conflict in and of itself, that trope.
See, and it's a really great reader question. It's a great book club question, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
When is the right thing not the right thing? I
Right.
think that's fantastic.